Have you ever watched someone act like you never existed, while secretly hoping your silence would break? That's the game. She ghosted you. Maybe she pulled back slowly, stopped replying, stopped calling, started posting more, but said less to you. She pretends to be fine, pretends she's unbothered, pretends like you were just another name in her contacts. But here's the part no one tells you. Her performance is fueled by your silence. She doesn't want to admit it, but it's gnawing at her. Every day that passes without a text, without a call, without even a passive-aggressive story from you, she feels it. Because your silence is louder than any message, louder than any confrontation. You didn't explode, you didn't plead, you didn't try to get closure, and that calm, unreactive energy, that's what hits her the hardest. Women expect men to fall apart. That's what society's programmed into them, that we'll chase, that we'll explain ourselves, that we'll panic when they pull away. But you didn't. You went ghost too, but not from pain, from power. You didn't disappear because you were weak. You withdrew because you were done bleeding for someone who vanished without respect. And that silence, it's not emptiness, it's a message she can't delete. She hears it in the quiet moments, when no one else is around, when the mask drops and the doubts creep in. She scrolls, she watches, she wonders. Why hasn't he reached out? Did he never care? Is he really over it? And those questions start doing damage, more damage than any argument ever could. Because you're not giving her the drama she thrives on, you're giving her the unknown. And the unknown always hits harder than closure. No contact isn't about revenge. It's about recognition. Recognition of your worth, your peace, your power. She thought you'd break, but you just broke free. If you've ever stayed quiet and watched someone fall apart behind a fake smile, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stoic clarity. Turn on notifications so you never miss when we drop something real. And comment below, my silence speaks louder than her words. Now let's begin. Number 1, she'll fake it, you'll feel it. She's not going to show you the damage. She won't post about missing you. She won't admit the silence stings. Instead, she'll flex, she'll smile. She'll post thirst traps, group photos, night out stories, all curated to deliver one message: I'm fine without you. But that's the show. That's what people do when they're trying to outrun their own thoughts. And while she fakes it for the world, you feel the shift. Not because you're watching her every move, not because you're obsessing, but because you've grown still enough to recognize when someone is projecting. You can feel the insecurity behind the performance, that sudden change in her online behavior. That's not confidence, that's a signal. The louder she pretends, the more silence she's trying to drown. And the longer your silence holds, the harder it gets for her to keep the mask on. She's not healed, she's hiding. And what she's hiding from is the version of you she never saw coming, the one who didn't break, didn't chase, didn't even flinch. That version stings because she thought she had you figured out. She thought she could control the emotional tone. She expected heartbreak, but you gave her detachment, and that confusion. That's where the obsession begins. Because here's the dark truth. People don't miss you when you text. They miss you when you stop. They don't regret you when you chase. They regret you when you disappear with purpose. Your silence isn't a void. It's a mirror. And every day she performs for others, she's really trying to convince herself she made the right choice. But the more she fakes it, the more she feels it. Deep down, quietly, alone. Number 2, your absence becomes the obsession. In the beginning, your silence feels like nothing to her, maybe even like a win. She thinks she holds the high ground, that walking away was power, that not hearing from you proves she made the right move. But then time passes. A week, 2, a month. Still nothing. No text, no check-in, no reminder that you still care. And that's when your absence stops being silence and starts becoming noise. See? The human mind hates a void. It needs to fill the space. And when you give her no information, her brain goes to work writing the story. Is he over me? Is he talking to someone else? Did I mean nothing? Did I mess this up? She scrolls back to old conversations. She starts watching your stories, then stops when she thinks you'll notice. She plays it cool in public, but replays your last words in private. And just like that, your silence starts to haunt her. Not because it's loud, but because it's complete, and it leaves her alone with her thoughts. Your absence becomes a question mark she can't erase, a wound she can't explain, because deep down she didn't expect it to last. She thought no contact was temporary, that you were bluffing, that eventually your need for closure or connection would override your pride, but it didn't, and that's what makes it powerful. You didn't ghost her back, you simply stopped feeding a system that relied on your attention to survive. This isn't about playing games. This is about reclaiming your mental real estate. And by removing yourself completely, you do the one thing that truly shifts power. You force her to sit with the consequences of her choices. Not with your words, not with your anger, but with your silence. That absence, it becomes the obsession. Because the one thing she can't explain is how you let go so easily. Number 3, she expected you to break first. She walked away thinking she'd broken the rhythm. That pulling back would force you to lean in. That ghosting you would trigger desperation. It's a pattern. Pull away, wait for the chase, enjoy the control. And it usually works. Most guys fall for it. They double text, they spiral, they start asking what they did wrong. But you broke the pattern instead of yourself. And that's what rattled her. She expected the collapse, but you didn't collapse. You paused, you redirected, you detached, and that move shifted the entire dynamic, because when someone tries to bait you into emotional chaos and you respond with silence, it flips the script. Now she's no longer the one controlling the tempo. She's reacting to your absence, checking for signs, waiting for the crack, but it doesn't come. The truth is, she needed your reaction to validate her power. She needed to know she still mattered, even if it was through conflict or sadness. That's the twisted psychology of emotional control. As long as you respond, you're still orbiting her. But when you go still, when you don't chase, when you don't break, she realizes she's no longer in control of the narrative. You are. And here's where it gets deeper. She never expected you to prioritize your peace over her presence. That decision, choosing stillness over reaction, discipline over desperation, is what separates a man who's owned from a man who's evolved. You didn't break, you elevated. And now, the silence that was supposed to weaken you, it's weakening her instead. Because she expected a breakdown, what she got was a man building in the background, quiet, focused, untouchable. Number 4, you refused to feed her ego. Every message you didn't send was power. Every urge you resisted was progress. She didn't just expect you to chase, she counted on it. That was part of the game. Pull away, get cold, and wait for you to warm things up again. Not because she missed you, not because she wanted to fix anything, but because attention feeds ego. And when a man keeps showing up after being dismissed, it reinforces her control. But you didn't play along, you cut the supply. Your silence didn't just create space, it disrupted her validation loop. She wanted to know she still had emotional influence, that she could disappear and still be the center of your mental orbit. But when you went quiet, really quiet, not the fake, I'll wait a few days quiet, but the kind that says, I don't chase disrespect, you didn't just disappear. You disrupted the emotional economy. She couldn't feed off your energy anymore. You didn't block her out of pettiness. You let her feel the absence of your presence. No reminders, no breadcrumbs, just space. And the absence of your attention, that's what starts to make her feel invisible. Because your attention wasn't just interest, it was status. It meant something, and now it's gone. That's the power of detachment. You stop being her emotional backup plan. You stop being the guy who waits in the wings. You stop being the predictable reaction to her push-pull behavior. And in doing so, you expose her reliance on your validation, not with words, not with conflict, just with silence. And that silence says, I am not here to validate what disrespects me. She'll feel it. She already does. And the worst part for her, you're not coming back. Not to give her closure, not to boost her ego, not at all. Number 5. Your peace creates her chaos. She wanted a reaction, wanted to feel the ripple. Ghosting you was supposed to trigger chaos, not in her, but in you. She expected confusion, overthinking, emotional fallout. But what she got instead was silence, stability, peace. And that peace, that's the part she didn't anticipate. Because when someone thrives on emotional games, calm is confrontation. You didn't explode, you didn't argue, you didn't demand answers, you just disengaged, with grace. And that kind of control, it messes with people who rely on chaos to feel important. She thought she could stir you, get under your skin, make you prove your worth through reaction. But instead, you proved something far more powerful. You're unshakable. Your peace became a mirror, a reflection of everything she couldn't offer: consistency, clarity, emotional maturity. And the more you held your ground, the more unstable she started to feel. Because when you refuse to match dysfunction with dysfunction, the game falls apart. Now she's stuck in her own silence, spinning her own doubts, replaying the exit she thought would hurt you, but is now haunting her. This is the paradox. You didn't do anything, and that's exactly what's getting to her. Because peace doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough about yourself to stop entertaining chaos. You chose discipline over drama, purpose over validation. And in doing that, you created something rare: emotional contrast. While she flails in artificial confidence, you move with quiet certainty. And that certainty, it burns deeper than any outburst ever could. Your peace is power, but for her, it's also punishment, because it shows her exactly what she lost, and exactly what she'll never disrupt again. Number 6. Stillness speaks louder than words. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't try to justify your silence. You didn't craft the perfect message to make her understand. You simply stopped responding, and in that stillness, you said everything. Because when you stop speaking, people start listening differently. They start watching, they start filling in the blanks, and that's where the real impact begins. She expected you to speak, to plead, to vent. But you gave her the one response she couldn't argue with: none. No words to twist, no emotions to feed on, no drama to control, just stillness. And that's more haunting than any rant, more unsettling than any paragraph, because it makes her question what you're thinking, how you're feeling, whether you even care anymore. Stillness creates uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds curiosity. You didn't need to defend your worth. You didn't need to announce your growth. You're showing it through silence, through your absence, through your ability to move on without making noise. That's what sets you apart. Most men try to explain their pain. You turned yours into focus, into strategy, into progress. And every moment she doesn't hear from you, that's a moment her mind works overtime, creating stories, wondering where you went, who you've become. You've become unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. Not because you're being manipulative, but because you're done being emotionally accessible to someone who vanished like you never mattered. Now, your presence has weight, and your silence has teeth. You don't need to speak to be understood. Your stillness says it all. It says, "I've moved on. I'm not waiting. I'm building." And nothing unsettles someone more than realizing you've already left without saying goodbye. Number 7. Her mask can't hide her regret. She wears the mask well, confident, untouched, maybe even glowing. To the world she's thriving. She posts like nothing happened. She laughs louder. She poses harder. But behind that mask, the cracks are forming. Because no matter how perfect the performance, regret always leaks through when silence doesn't break. And your silence, it's not passive, it's piercing. She thought she could move on without consequence, that walking away would come with no cost. But the mask she wears in public doesn't change the questions she wrestles with in private. Why hasn't he reached out? Did he ever care? Is he really just done? And those questions start to rot the performance from the inside. Because she expected temporary silence, she never planned for permanent distance. She assumed you'd orbit her, that even in your absence your attention would still linger. But now, you're not even reacting, you're not watching, you're not feeding her ego with likes, views, or energy. And that void? It turns the spotlight back on her. She's left performing for an audience that no longer includes the one man she thought would always be watching. That's where the regret begins, not in what happened, but in what didn't. She didn't expect to miss you like this, not after choosing distance, not after pulling away. But that's how real regret works. It doesn't show up when you're begging. It shows up when you go silent, when you stop playing the game, when you disappear with dignity. Now, every smile she posts is part performance, part self-reassurance. But the truth is, she wouldn't be trying so hard to look over you, if she was really over you. The mask says she's fine. But your silence? It's exposing everything she tried to hide. Number 8. You became scarce, and scarcity hurts. She didn't realize what you were until you weren't available anymore. That's how it always goes. Your time, your attention, your consistency, those were resources she thought were infinite. But now, you're gone. Not in bitterness, not in anger, but in scarcity. And nothing unsettles someone more than losing easy access to what they took for granted. People don't value what's abundant, they value what's rare. And when you were always there, responding, showing up, caring, she didn't have to question your presence. She never felt the risk of losing you. But your silence changed that. You stopped being predictable. You stopped showing up. You stopped filling the space she left. And suddenly, she had to face something she didn't expect, a version of you that no longer waits to be chosen. You became a scarcity in her world, emotionally unavailable, quiet, unreachable. And that change flipped the power dynamic. She's used to men proving their worth, not disappearing without a trace. She's used to control, not confusion. But now, every day she doesn't hear from you makes you more rare, more valuable, more desirable, because what she once took for granted now feels permanently lost. This is how regret builds, not in moments of conflict, but in moments of absence. When she starts to notice how much lighter her phone is, how quiet her notifications have become, and in that silence, she realizes she didn't just lose someone, she lost someone who made effort look effortless, someone who didn't just give, but gave without asking for anything in return. And now that you've gone scarce, now that your energy is no longer free, she feels the cost of her decision. Scarcity doesn't just create value, it creates reflection. And right now, your distance is teaching her everything your words never could. Number 9. She remembers what you don't repeat. Memory is selective, and silence sharpens it. When you stop chasing, stop reminding her of who you were, you force her to rely on her own recollection. And that's where the real impact hits. Because now she has to remember you without you. No messages, no presence, no validation. Just echoes, just stillness. Just the last version of you she had access to, and the cold realization that it's no longer available. You're not repeating the cycle. You're not circling back to check in, to clarify, to fix. You're not texting on holidays, not replying to stories, not lurking in her orbit. That complete removal? That's what makes memory work over time. Because when someone no longer reinforces their presence, the past gets louder. She replays old texts, old calls, moments you let her in. And now that you're no longer repeating those patterns, they start to matter more. You broke the loop. And in doing so, you forced her to face the reality of what she walked away from. She remembers the safety, the consistency, the way you showed up. Not because you reminded her, but because you no longer do. And when you stop giving, people start to realize how much they were actually receiving. This is how silence becomes unforgettable. You didn't post a farewell. You didn't write a paragraph. You didn't give her closure. You just stopped. And that void is now doing all the work. Every message not sent, every call not made. It reminds her that she was the last one to hold your presence. And now that presence is gone. Not in anger, but in evolution. She'll remember it. Not because you're repeating the past, but because you've outgrown it completely. Number 10. No contact isn't a game. It's growth. Let them think you're playing hard to get. Let them believe it's manipulation or ego or pride. They don't understand because they never had to rebuild themselves in silence. But you know that no contact isn't about trying to win her back. It's about getting yourself back, your peace, your clarity, your control. It's not a tactic, it's a boundary. It's not a punishment, it's protection. You didn't go quiet to make her chase. You went quiet because you were done chasing what never chose you with intention. You went silent because chaos doesn't deserve a response. Because respect isn't begged for, it's mirrored. And you stopped trying to convince anyone of your value. That's not cold. That's self-worth. That's growth. No contact forced you to sit with the parts of yourself you used to avoid, the attachments, the self-doubt, the need for validation. And in that stillness, you sharpened. You didn't need closure. You needed perspective. You didn't need her explanation. You needed your own peace. And every day you stayed disciplined, you became more dangerous, more focused, more grounded. Until eventually she faded into the past, and you stepped fully into who you were becoming. And maybe she sees it now. Maybe she feels the shift. But it doesn't matter. Because this was never about revenge. It was about realignment. Becoming the man who doesn't chase, who doesn't flinch, who doesn't break at the sound of silence. Because now, that silence belongs to you. It's not a wound, it's a wall. It's not weakness, it's your weapon. You've outgrown the game, you've outgrown the past, and now the only thing left is forward. She pretended she didn't care. She smiled, she posted, she moved like she never looked back. But deep down, your silence changed the whole equation. What started as distance became power. What started as no contact became clarity. You didn't vanish to hurt her, you vanished to heal you. And in doing that, you flipped the script. Now, she feels what she never expected, your absence, your growth, your peace. She's still performing, still pretending, but you're done pretending. You've evolved. You've chosen purpose over panic, discipline over drama, stillness over attention. And now your silence isn't empty, it's echoing. Every day she doesn't hear from you, she hears everything you didn't say. This is what real revenge looks like. Not anger, not chaos, just complete detachment. You're not chasing closure anymore. You are the closure. And when the mask finally falls off, when the noise fades, when the performance stops, she'll feel it in the only place your silence ever intended to reach, her soul. If you're done explaining yourself, if your silence has become your strength, hit that like button. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below. My silence is my closure. Thanks for watching. Stay focused, stay grounded, and let your silence speak louder than their noise. Until next time, stay stoic.